welcome to Juice and Java. We have a ton for you today, including in the squeeze. We'll have all of your international and national and local stories.
And right here, Syracuse basketball, men's and women's, both trying to qualify for the NCAA Tournament. Our Brittany Ehrlich is in studio to help us out to see who's making the tournament.
And stick with us, because Juice and Java starts right now. Snowy Syracuse. I'm Nicole Dementri.
And I'm Federico. Thanks for starting your morning with us.
Let's kick things off with the squeeze. President Trump is leading the call for increased tariffs on aluminum and steel imports. He repeated previous concerns of the international community taking advantage of the United States in trade deals. Markets started dropping at the end of last week as industry started worrying about a trade war. The Trump administration has not specified which countries will be affected, and Canada is already looking to be exempt. Now, the head of the European Union is threatening to up tariffs on jeans and bourbon, while leaders in the auto and aviation industries are bracing for major losses. President Trump, however, remains unwavering in his convictions.
We're going to build our steel industry back, and we're going to build our aluminum industry back.
This is exactly what President Trump ran on back in 2016. He said he wanted to bring jobs back to America, especially in aluminum and steel, and I guess that's the goal right here. Yeah, and you know what's interesting? Canada is actually our biggest importer for steel and aluminum. So the fact that they are already trying to retaliate if this does happen, it's going to be a huge impact on those markets. But markets yesterday did end up, ending unwavering. They were volatile throughout the initial process, but it's interesting what's going to happen with China. China's a big importer of steel as well. Yeah. Moving on, Central Michigan University is on edge after an active shooter situation on Friday. A student shot and killed his parents at a residence hall before fleeing. With the suspect at large, the university took major precautions, telling students to shelter in place in dorms and classrooms. Police described the incident as a family-type domestic situation and conducted a search of the area for the student. Friday was the last day of classes before break for CMU, and confused parents trying to pick up their children were redirected to local hotels. Police eventually apprehended the suspect that night as he tried to take a train away. This is just a really tragic story, but thank God no students were hurt in the making of this. Exactly, and actually a CitrusTV family member and Juice and Java family member of ours had friends and students that went to CMU. We ended up talking to them yesterday at CitrusTV News Live at 6. Thankfully, everything was okay and they were safe. But I know the one young woman we spoke with, she was really scared, especially this came just a couple weeks after Parkland. And not only that, as soon as they lifted that they didn't have to shelter in place, she was heading on home. Yeah, most students were for spring break, like we said. Yeah, and now moving into international news, nuclear weapons raining down on Florida. Yeah, that's the image Russian President Vladimir Putin started an annual speech with last week. Putin bragged about Russia's renewed and apparently unbeatable and invincible nuclear power during his parliamentary address. He warned that any actions against Russia or its allies would result in immediate retaliation. Now, the White House responded saying this confirmed the decades-long fears that Russia was redeveloping their military power. Experts warn, though, that big talk is to be expected as retaliations are tense with the West, and Putin is up for re-election later this month. And in fact, that actually comes in a couple weeks. March 18th is when he is up for re-election, and this is his platform right now. Yeah, I mean, he wants to create a world in which the United States is scared of Russia's power, where every country is scared of Russia's power. Yeah. We saw Russian meddling in the most recent elections. Russia is definitely after the United States right now, and it's interesting to see what direction President Trump takes in all of this. Yeah, and those animations that we were talking about of the nuclear weapons falling on Florida, a lot of people are suspecting it's because Florida is really President Trump's second home. So that is another message that Vladimir Putin is trying to distance himself from President Trump. 1/3 of Americans miss their medical appointments every year, and Uber thinks it has a solution. Millions of people fail to see their doctors because of a lack of reliable transportation. The ride-hailing giant is launching an Uber healthcare app for hospitals and clinics to use. Patients don't need the app or even a smartphone to use the service, and hospital employees can use a landline to find drivers. Clients receive a text when rides have been booked, letting them know when to expect their driver. Uber says this is an effort to have a more permanent impact on healthcare in their own way. And it's great to see a company from the private sector like this trying to make an impact on people's healthcare and people's lives.
Yeah, you know, and Uber is looking to move into the healthcare sector, like you mentioned. But this is great, I think, especially for elderly people that don't have the options, may not be able to drive. They're allowed to use their landlines. The only part I am a little bit confused on is how they were talking about they'll send a text once your driver is there. Now, if you use a landline, I'm not sure how that goes. I know my grandma would really benefit using this, but she has absolutely no cell phone. Her phone's still attached to the wall.
I'm sure they'll figure out over time that maybe the older generations will struggle with their phone and hopefully create options for them to still get the services anyway.
Yeah, and it's a good story, so hopefully it keeps going along. And no, you're not seeing double. Barbra Streisand's 2 new dogs are in fact clones of her late dog Samantha. And get this story. In the new Variety magazine cover story, Streisand revealed she just couldn't part with her beloved companion, like many of us. And she took samples from the dog's mouth and stomach, which were then used to genetically create her 2 new pets, Miss Violet and Miss Scarlet. There are now many companies around the world which will perform this service, although it can cost up to $50,000 a pet. Streisand says her new dogs are very different and have different personalities, and she's excited to see if they have any of Samantha's traits in the future.
Well, I'm sure they have all of her traits if they're in fact clones.
Would you clone your dog?
I don't think so. You know, my dog Annie at home, she's a white little fluff ball, similar to Barbra Streisand's original dog, Samantha. But, you know, your one dog, it's a companion, just so special. I'm not sure I would ever do this.
You know, and we were speaking about this earlier. To each their own, everyone's going to do whatever they want to do with their pets, but you know, there's so many pets in shelters that need adoption.
That's such a good point.
You know, I could never clone my Britney Spears. There can only be one Britney Spears cat and one or another Cinnamon Toast Crunch cat, so I would rather go to a shelter to get mine.
All right. Well, more than 30 inches of snow fell in parts of upstate New York on Friday, breaking both records and power lines. Syracuse was hit with more than 14 inches of snow, and the university declared a snow day for only the 3rd time in the school's history. The last time students enjoyed a full day off was in 2011, and before that in 1993. The storm also broke numerous records. March 2nd is now the snowiest day of the winter, and the 4th snowiest March day on record. But records weren't the only thing broken. Over 83,000 customers in upstate New York lost power due to the storm. This was a barn burner of a storm. I haven't seen something like this up here in years.
The roads are still really, really bad. And I know we luckily didn't lose power, either one of us, but so many people did. I know the Dome did at one point in South Campus. It was a heck of a storm, truly.
14 inches is not something to play around with, especially when you have all these crews out on the road who have to wipe this stuff off. You got to get the sidewalks ready and everything. I thought ultimately they did a decent job salting and making sure that the hard snow wasn't too bad for driving conditions and for walking conditions. But ultimately, you know, the roads they're still pretty messy.
But you know what they say about March? In like a lion, out like a lamb.
Hopefully.
And after the break, Sarah Perkes is in studio to talk about the conclusion of an award season, the Oscars, and it's shaped by the Me Too movement.
And Brittany Ehrlich will talk to us about Syracuse basketball's chances of making the tournament.
Stay with us.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good stir. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Smokey,
Catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
Give it back!
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back to Juice and Java. Nicole, with the Oscars on Sunday night, we're coming to a close on award season.
Now, this year's season in particular was very different from past years because of the prevailing Me Too movement. Sarah Perkes is in studio to weigh in. Sarah?
Thanks, guys. Like you said, award season is not over yet, and the last major award show is still to come. The Oscars will be taking place on Sunday, and we will be able to see how the Academy handles the Me Too and Time's Up movements. Ryan Seacrest is still scheduled to host the red carpet for E! News despite the sexual harassment allegations made against him last week. His former stylist Susie Hardy says in a letter written by her attorney that Seacrest was touching her inappropriately for years, and when she had reported him to Human Resources, she was fired from her position. However, Seacrest's name has been cleared after a thorough investigation taken by E! Now, despite Ryan's willingness to stay, big-time actor Casey Affleck does not feel the same. He will not be in attendance at the Oscars this year as he has withdrawn from presenting the Best Actress award. He has been accused in the past for sexual harassing 2 women employees who worked on a project with him in 2010. Sources say he does not want to be a distraction and take away from any of the actress's performances. The last few award shows have been primarily dominated by the Me Too movement. The Golden Globes kicked off the award season with a lot of its stars wearing all black. This was to show the solidarity with the victims of sexual assault. Additionally, many of the actresses brought activists as their guests. It was the first major televised show following the numerous allegations made against Harvey Weinstein. The Time's Up movement is also being fairly represented during the award shows. At the Grammys, many of its attendees wore white roses to acknowledge the campaigns. Similarly, the SAG Awards also took part in responding by introducing an all-women presenter lineup. At the BAFTAs, domestic violence activists protested at the red carpet to stage a demonstration while the attendees were also asked to wear all black. Now, seeing these campaigns remain very prevalent in Hollywood, what can we expect to see at the Oscars? Well, host Jimmy Kimmel said in an interview with ABC that he will not be focusing on either movement. This is because he doesn't believe the Oscars should be reliving people's sexual assault experiences. Additionally, Time's Up is not asking its attendees to wear all black for the show. Jennifer Todd, a producer for the Oscars, says that she wants the Oscars to be as entertaining as possible, according to Time magazine. And I will say, going off of last year's big picture debacle, I'm sure that won't be too hard to do. So overall, we have a lot to look forward to and to keep an eye out for during this year's Oscar show. Back to you, Nikki and Connor.
Thanks so much, Sarah. When we come back, Rochelle Billow will be in studio to talk about her collaboration with Original Grain.
Stay with us.
Nice work, Bert.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason. because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love, love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
Thanks for sticking with us. Today in studio we have Rochelle Billow. Rochelle is a national food writer and recently partnered with Original Grain as part of the Eating Disorders Awareness Week. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
So Rochelle, what did you do with Original Grain and how did you get started with them?
Well, I eat lunch there every day.
As one does.
As one does. And I'm friends with the co-owners, and I was pondering one day, every year I do something to celebrate, but get the awareness out for National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. It's a cause that's really close to my heart, and it's just a good opportunity to spread messaging. So I knew this year I wanted to make a big impact, but I wanted to keep everything local. And as was happening at Original Grain, some good hip hop tunes were playing, and I thought, you know, they should have a menu item called the Nutty by Nature. I can't believe that they don't. And then the wheels just started turning, and I thought, well, what if we did a collaboration and named it Nutty by Nature, and maybe they'd be willing to donate a portion of the proceeds? And they said yes immediately.
That's great.
That's amazing. So if we go into Original Grain, how does that process work? Is it up on the menus? How can I go and donate?
Well, so unfortunately, it was only for the month of February. But that said, if we get enough people asking for the toast, they might put it back on the menu. But you can always donate to Ophelia's Place, which is where we donated the money. It's an eating disorder recovery support system here in Syracuse, New York. And Ophelia's Place is always taking donations. So you can go to Ophelia's Place
year-round.
Just donate, yeah, exactly.
And you have a personal connection with Ophelia's Place. What is that?
I do. So I struggled with eating disorders throughout my whole childhood and teenage years, and I remember one night in high school, I had a particularly bad night, and I knew nothing about Ophelia's Place other than the fact that they might be able to help me or make me feel less alone. And so late one night, I called and left a message on their voice answering machine. And the next day, the founder and the president of Ophelia's Place called me back and spoke with me, and we've been friends ever since. She's been a mentor to me, and so it's a personal connection.
Yeah, no, and I think that's an amazing story that so many of us can connect with itself, and it's great that you are out here really advocating and getting the message out to people. So I know you mentioned that this was the month of February. Aside from Original Grain, if we want to know more about Ophelia's Place or the work you do, how do we go about that?
Definitely. So Ophelia's Place has a subset of their company called Circles of Change. And what I love about Circles of Change is there's not a real physical location for it. It exists online, and you can find out more by searching the hashtag Circles of Change or going to their Instagram account at Circles of Change. And there, it's just a body positive, wellness oriented way to change the conversation. So you don't have to identify as an eating disordered person to want to be healthier, to want to take better care of your body, to want to talk less about diets and more about self-care. So it all starts right there online, and that's, I think, the best way to start the conversation.
Thank you so much for your time, Rochelle. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for sharing your personal connections, too.
You're welcome.
And coming up, Lilia Wood is in studio to give us updates on gun control since the Parkland shooting.
Keep it here.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be?
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck.
So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
On February 14th, life at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School changed forever after a former student brought his gun into the school and killed 17 people.
Since then, survivors are leading the movement against gun control by lobbying their local politicians, speaking to the media, and organizing marches across the nation.
Lilia Wood is here in studio with the latest on gun control since the shooting.
Ever since the high school shooting in Parkland, Florida on Valentine's Day, gun violence and debate has been in the news daily and in the minds of many. Locally, a growing number of different school districts in central New York investigated alleged threats earlier this week. In one situation, a 16-year-old Syracuse student posted a Snapchat video bragging about his school shooting skills while shooting a can with a BB gun. In Skaneateles, 2 schools were in lockdown on Thursday after a bullet was found in the bathroom. Officials say the bullet was found in the middle school. And another incident happened on Thursday in Casanova. A high school student made a threat, but thankfully, police later determined the threat was not credible. Still, the schools in the district increased their security. People across the country are trying to find a solution to stop school shootings and threats. On the Senate floor on Thursday, Senator Marco Rubio proposed his own plan for gun safety.
If passed, this law would provide federal grants to do some important things that would have really been helpful in this case. Strengthen school security, infrastructure of the school. Provide school training for everyone, administrators, teachers, even students, to be able to identify threats and to report them.
One idea that President Donald Trump has is for teachers to be armed with guns. Education student Lydia Bruce does not agree with that.
I don't think I would ever want to hold a gun in a classroom just because I don't think it's the right way to go about the issue, and I don't think it would prevent anything having a gun in the classroom because it only leads to bad problems and situations.
High school students are taking it upon themselves to petition for schools to become safer. There are already plans for walkouts and protests, but some high school administrations are not supporting students who are participating in demonstrations. One superintendent from Texas wrote on Facebook, quote, "Please be advised that Needville ISD will not allow student demonstrations during school hours for any type of protest or awareness," with 2 exclamation points. This Facebook post was later deleted. In response to these high school students receiving penalties such as suspension or expulsion, Syracuse University joined a growing number of colleges protecting students' First Amendment rights to free speech and protest. This decision means participating in demonstrations will not be held against students applying to Syracuse University. This initiative protects students having any part in any movement, including this one, Black Lives Matter, and the #MeToo movement. The demonstrations on social media and the streets condemning gun violence have already started, and they plan to continue throughout this month.
Lilia, thank you so much. When are the national school walkouts, and what should we expect?
Okay, so the national school walkouts are going to be on March 14th, and they want at 10 a.m., wherever it's 10 a.m., wherever you are in the country, they want teachers, parents, students, anyone who thinks it's their duty, I guess, to go out and for 17 minutes walk, for 1 minute for each person killed in the Florida shooting.
And there's actually a national walk here, or a local walk here, March for Our Lives on March 24th, that's put on by high school students.
Thank you so much, Lilia. And coming up, what are Syracuse basketball's chances of playing in March Madness? Keep it right here to find out.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, for college basketball fans, March is the most exciting time of the year. For me, it's also my birthday.
Every year, 68 teams play in the NCAA Tournament. 2 years ago, both the men's and women's team made the Final Four, but last year, Syracuse men's basketball didn't even make the tournament.
It was a shame. And with the selection days coming up soon, we have Brittany here in studio to talk today with us about Syracuse chances at making the big dance. Is it going to happen?
Well, unfortunately for Syracuse fans, the odds aren't in their favor. It's just like the Hunger Games.
I wanted to hear.
Syracuse currently doesn't have any top wins, and it's not looking great. They can make a run in the ACC tournament, but it's very unlikely. So right now, I wouldn't put your money on Syracuse.
Okay.
It's been a really tough season for the men's team. What happened this year?
There's no depth on this team. Early in the season, they had Torian Thompson leave. He went to Seton Hall. Then they had Geno Thorpe leave. Who knows why? And then they had Howard Washington, who also left due to injury. If you look up right there, they have the best wins against Maryland, Virginia Tech, and Miami. That's no top 25 teams. You can't make the tournament without any of those wins. And then they had a few bad losses against Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, and Boston College.
I think the difference this year for the men's team is the fact that they won some games on the road this year as opposed to last year. They couldn't get that done at all. Do you think that helps our chances at all?
Well, last year, as you mentioned, they didn't get those normal wins that a Syracuse team should be getting. But again, no top wins. It's not looking great for Syracuse.
Okay, so moving into women's basketball, what are the chances there?
Definitely much better than the men.
Okay.
This week in ESPN's bracketology, they were predicted to be a 10 seed and play in Waco. So Syracuse has moved down in that because they did lose in the second round of the ACC tournament, but they are most likely going to be in the NCAA tournament.
Anyone we should be looking out for on their team?
Definitely, you can't talk about Syracuse women's basketball without Tiana Mungakahia. She leads the nation in assists, and she continues to lead the Orange in points and assists. She even set an ACC record for most assists in a single season.
It's a very young team. So how far do you expect that they can go? If they make it, first of all.
Yeah.
That's definitely something to look forward to. I don't see them making a run to the championship or the Final Four as they did in the past, but they do have two top 25 wins, which the men don't, against Florida State and Duke. So they can make a little run in the tournament, but again, not a championship team caliber.
Yeah, and that Virginia Tech loss the other day where they got outscored 29-5 in the final quarter, that was pretty interesting as well. I mean, you hope that they can keep their composure down the stretch.
And hopefully fingers, toes, and everything you can cross. If we can't do it this year, hopefully next year.
Yeah, head coach Quentin Hillsman always talks about how excited he is for next year. He has a bunch of top 5-star recruits sitting on the bench currently, and he's very excited for them. And Coach Boeheim also has a lot of recruits coming in next year for the men's team.
Thank you so much, Brittany.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. And that's all for Juice and Java this morning.
Check us out online and follow us on CitrusTV, all of our social media outlets.
I'm Connor Federico.
And I'm Nicole Dementri. Happy Syracuse.